Hi, folks. It's Paul W., the boss. Back for more advice on restaurant management. Today, we're going to discuss how to fix labor costs. But before we do that, let me give you the link to my website again, www.theboss.rocks, helping restaurant owners, managers grow sales, profits professionally and personally. Okay, so let's get into it here. Again, we're going to fix labor costs. I'll tell you, in all honesty, in all my years, it's fixing labor costs 75% of the time is a good schedule. And that's where most people mess up. Okay. Um, and it's, well, I should say the hardest thing for them to do is send people home. They don't want to do it. They get the shift just tends to be a little bit slower. They don't seem to push their staff a little bit harder to get the stuff done so they can get out on time. The employees are used to working this shift, say it's 11 to 2. They're used to at 1:30 start cleaning. Well, if it's a little bit slow, they're going to start cleaning at 1 o'clock. So they're used to this pace too. Okay, and then once you get stuck in that rut and you work those 2 hours, and you don't really want to, you're enjoying having it easy that day. Okay, so you don't really push yourself. Employees don't push themselves. Managers don't push the employees. Okay, you've got to be able to, as a restaurant manager, margins are so small. You've got to be expecting the most out of everybody, even when it's slow. So sometimes working the slow shifts are harder because you got to get stuff done faster or sooner. So that makes you work fast anyway, and that makes it harder. So, excuse me. Scheduling. We're going to go through on how to make a good schedule because, like I said, that covers 75% of your labor problems. Most managers do not take scheduling serious enough, and that's becomes our labor cost problem. Okay, so first, how to make a good schedule. Well, you got to figure out your target labor percent or however your company's doing it. Maybe it's how many hours you're allowed or whatever. You got to figure out what that target is, and then you got to use that as the budget. If you don't know how to um, hit whatever goal it is your company's setting, you need to talk to your boss and say, okay, so how do I know how much to schedule to hit my labor? Well, it's a labor percent is sales divided by, or labor dollars divided by sales. Some companies will say you have, 200 hours to use this week, and that's what you've got to do. Okay, so you've got to determine these things. Okay. Oh, excuse me again. Gross sales. You're going to schedule, say your labor percent's 20%, you're going to schedule about 21, 22%, and realize you've got to cut some, but you also want to schedule to be a little bit extra busy. Now, the great thing about it is, let's say you are a little bit extra busy. It only takes one or maybe two more people per shift if you're growing just a little bit, with the exception of those nights where you just get rocked, and where you need a lot more people. Most cases, if you're growing your business steadily, one or extra two people just for 2 hours each, like 6 to 8 or 5 to 7 or 11 to 1 or 11 to 2 or 12 to 2 or whatever, is going to get you over that hump and everything. Now, you also have to go into the mindset that, hey, I know I've got an extra person 5 to 8. I've got an extra person from 11 to 2. And know that, hey, if things aren't all that busy, somebody's going home. Okay? And it doesn't have to be that person that's you added on that's scheduled 11 to 2. Mix it up. If you mix it up, it keeps everybody a little bit happy. There's going to be some people that are full-time saying, no, I can't go home. I need the hours. You got bills to pay. Hey, you should have somebody on your staff that says, hey, I'll go home. Usually there's almost always someone who's willing to go home. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is your sales projections. Okay. Which is really the first part of what you're doing. I mean, you should know your labor percent and everything. It becomes automatic that you're going to overschedule just a smidge, just 1 or 2%. Okay. Your sales projections. And you got to know how to make sales projections, but each shift, you got to know your sales projections for that shift, or at least for that day. Okay. Excuse me, I'm a little parched. Because how can you manage your labor if you don't know what your sales are supposed to be? So how do you manage your labor? If you think you're really busy and you're doing $500 but you're supposed to do 700, well, you need to cut labor even though you think you're really busy. Okay. What I suggest is a 6-week average. Go through your shifts. If you can do it by shift, day and night, that's best. Maybe you need to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe you need to do breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner. I don't, it depends on what your restaurant does. If you can do it by shift, that's even better. But if not, you're gonna do it by day. And you're gonna take, if it's a Monday, you can go back and look at the last 6 Mondays and say, add those up. Now, let's say one of those Monday was Labor Day or Memorial Day. Those get thrown out. You don't count those. Okay, so you may have to divide by 4, or if there's 2 holidays, or 6. Any of those fluke weeks, or if there's a Super Bowl Sunday, or there was some big catering order on that day, or whatever. You gotta use accurate and real numbers. Okay, you can't use just and let me say why you don't use the number at all. For example, let's say on 2 Mondays ago, you did $2,000 on Monday, okay, and but you had a catering order that was $500, okay. Well, on Mondays, your true average is 1,800, but on that Monday, if you take the total sales minus the catering, it only comes to 1,500. You don't want to use that 1,500 number, because you might have lost 300 in sales because you were so busy making that big order. Or maybe some of those people for that big church order would have ordered from you that night anyway. Okay, so you lose those sales as well. So you can't just throw that day out and divide by 1 less, or you can just skip it and add go back 7 weeks and add on that one and make it 6 still. Okay, but I would do it. I suggest 6 weeks, but you could do a 4-week average. It'll work. It'll work pretty good too. Okay. Realize your special events, holidays, events, etc. Okay. And now let's say you're scheduling for a holiday or a special event. Okay. Now say it's a Monday, it's Labor Day. You're not going to go back and count the last 6 Mondays. What you're going to do is go back and count the last 6 Labor Days. Okay, and do a 6-week average off those. So you're going to do 2014, 2013, 2012, so on and so forth. Okay, instead of doing the last, doing the four Mondays in August and the last two in June or July. You're not going to do that. You're going to go back for those years and use a 6-week average in that case. Okay, or a six sales day average. I shouldn't say 6-week. So that's how you're going to do that. In holidays and special events, stuff like that. You could probably go more like 4, because going back 6 years is really too long. Okay. Manager schedule. So the next thing you're going to do, now you get your sales projections in. Now the next thing you're going to do, and a lot of this, if you have a POS system, your POS system should be helping you do all this. Okay. Next is your manager schedule. Oh, excuse me. First, you're going to make everything's going to work top down. Okay. You're going to go from the highest ranking person down. Okay. So the GM needs to work the 3 busiest shifts. Yes, 3. I know you guys don't like it, but that's what you're going to pay for. The big bucks, you get the big bucks to work the busiest shifts. So if Friday, Saturday, and Thursday nights are your busiest shifts, the GM needs to be there on those shifts. I'm not saying you have to close, but you got to be there for those, get them through those rushes. That means 8 or 9 o'clock probably. Okay. Must-haves. And then you're going to schedule your must-haves, like your openers and your closers. Whatever positions are really you can't live without. You have to have an opener. You've got to have a closer. You're going to schedule them next. Well, other than your assistant managers, you make your schedule out. Then the rest of your management team, your and your second assistant or your first assistant should work. If you're going to work the three busiest shifts, they should be there for at least 2 out of 3 of those. I mean, there should be some overlap there. The two busiest shifts, let's say Friday and Saturday night, let's say, all the managers should be there, more than likely. You might let one of them have it off. But I wouldn't, your busiest shift, I'd give nobody off. Okay. And your second busiest shift, I'd give one of them off. Okay. And then rotate that one with everybody, with the exception of yourself. So everybody once in a while can get a Saturday off. So, sometimes it's going to be you and your second assistant. Sometimes it's going to be you and your first assistant. The other ones get it off every other week or something. Okay. And then you're going to schedule the things you absolutely have to have. Your openers and closers and whatever the shifts those are. Now, must have is a hairy definition. So, do you have to have a closer? I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. I don't know your restaurant. So, a 5 to 8 shift is not a must-have. Just that simple. Or 11 to 2. It's not a must-have. Okay. Next, you're going to schedule the next most important people. These might be your trainers, your crew leaders, your head waitress, your head cook, whoever. Okay. You're going to schedule them, and you can see you're going from the people working 50 hours a week to 40 hours a week to probably 30 hours a week and so on down the line. Then you're going to fill out the cost as you go. You got a budget of $3,000 this week. After you paid yourself, you got this much left over. After you paid the assistant manager, you got this much left over, and so on. And so you got an idea. And you don't take those numbers. Don't get scared by those numbers. Because you're going to be like, shit, I hardly have anything left over. Well, you're making a lot more money than the other people. And they're not only you're getting a higher rate, but you're also getting far more hours. So it's scary at first. You get done with the management staff and you're like, shit, that's 50% of my labor. You're like, I don't have enough left. You can make it stretch, okay, if you do it right and do it well, okay. Other hints. Hey, the busiest shifts, everybody works. Now, for years, on Friday nights, always been my busiest night. Everybody works on Friday night. I don't care if I'm scheduled 10 hours over or 20 hours over. I make them all work, okay? Unless I know it's going to be a slow Friday, like the Friday after Thanksgiving's usually a little bit slower than normal. People are eating leftovers and stuff. So, with the exception of something like that, everybody works Friday night or whatever your busiest shift is. You might have to trim it up some and take people from a 5 to 8 shift or 5 to 9 shift and come them down to 5:30 to 7:30 or 6 to 8 or 5 to 7 or whatever. But everybody gets scheduled unless they've requested it off. Okay. If you handle that Friday, your 2 or 3 busiest nights, if you kick ass on those nights, run great solid operations, get a product out quick, get them serviced well, and really kick butt and handle the operations on those 2 or 3 busiest days, your sales will go up. I promise. You've got to kick butt on the busiest nights, and on those nights, you put your aces in their places. You don't worry about as much about training. You can have practice. You have people practicing because you still got to work the people that are new. And they still got to practice. But if they're practicing, then it's because they started on Monday, Tuesday, and I've had two or three shifts, and now they know what to do. They're just going to get good at doing it. But you don't put somebody into a new position. You don't ever start anybody on your busiest shifts working, okay? Because nobody has time. You need to be focused on kicking butt. And Because if your sales go, let's say you get a big sales increase on your busiest shift, let's say Friday night, and you go from doing 8,000 on Fridays to doing 10,000. Okay, that's huge. Okay, but let's say Monday nights you only do $2,000. Okay, if you get a big bump up going from 2,000 to 2,200, it's gonna be a pretty good bump up. Um, but you go for, like I said, if you're doing eight and you go to 10, that's $2,000, right? But you'll never on a Monday if you normally do 2,000, you're not going to jump to 4,000. It's just not real likely. Okay, so that's why you make sure on your busiest nights you're taking care of business. That's going to grow your sales. Okay. Um, Next, sales would go up. Run show on the run. If you're going to run short on slower shifts. Okay, there's less damage. If you overschedule on, if you underschedule on a Friday, you're going to go and you normally do 8,000 with a ticket average of $10. You got 800 customers you're taking care of. Whereas on Monday you're doing 2,000. You only got 200 customers to take care of. So in general, there's going to be less people affected. Okay. And you're scheduled tight on slow days. The other reason you're tight on slow days, your lowest ranking managers should be working the slowest days. Okay. And they're going to be the ones that are going to find it harder to send somebody home. They're going to be the ones that are less proficient and productive. And they're more apt to waste a little bit of labor. Well, you don't want to give them too much labor to waste because then it gets all of a sudden it's out of control and you can't get caught up. Okay. Hold your assistants accountable. Make sure that they're cutting labor. If they're too mild mannered to cut somebody and send them home, then they're not management material. And you'll have to tell them that. So next, you've made out your schedule and you're scheduled over more than your 1 or 2%. Next, you're going to do is trim as needed. You're going to cut on slow days first. Okay. Avoid cutting shifts. In other words, instead of taking somebody off that's working 5 to 9, schedule them 5 to 8 or 5 to 7 or 5:30 to 7:30 or something instead. Try not to cut the people. Okay. Try to make the schedule on that shorter, schedule them shorter rather than cut a person off the schedule altogether. Okay. Because if they're there, they're not going to mind too often if you make them work a half an hour, 15 minutes, or an hour over. But if you find you need somebody, it's going to be hard to get somebody to come in and work at the last minute. Okay. Well, I just covered that. Training. While they're in training, you're going to test them for their speed. Okay. They've got to be good hands-on. So there's no replacement for speed. And then when I say speed, accuracy and quality have to come before speed. So you cannot sacrifice quality in order to do something fast. You've got to keep the same level and expectation there while just getting the work done sooner. Okay. Next is checklist time management guidelines. Each station should have people just don't come in and cook or just don't come in and service. The waitresses have to clean their sections, refill their salt and pepper shakers, so on and so forth. They got to vacuum after they leave. Cooks, they've got things they've got to clean and flip containers and stuff like that. So that's what your checklists are for. Time management, you should give them a general guideline that these things should be done by this time. These things should be done by this time. These things should be done by this time, and that should be posted up. For people in every department that has different jobs. Okay, And maybe you've got delivery drivers here, you've got waitresses here, you got cooks here. Each of them should have their own guideline, okay? And actually check them off. If you're going to dry erase marker, I suggest putting these things in laminate so you can use a grease pencil or a dry erase marker or whatever to check it, okay? Lastly, one of the problems is your schedule's too top heavy. You have too many managers working, and they want to let the employees do all the work. Well, sometimes if you're top heavy, the manager's got to get in and do. They may have to run a shift and hold a position too, to keep from being top heavy. A lot of managers, once they make managers, they don't want to do that extra physical work. They don't want to get involved in that, so they refuse. Well, then you're gonna have to replace manager because managers got to be able to do anything anytime. So, um, if you follow, usually if you just follow this scheduling thing, this is gonna fix most of your problem. The other thing is that you really got to be aware of, and it's like discipline employees. Younger managers and newer managers that are less experienced, are going to have a hard time cutting people. So don't give them too much extra, so they have to cut because you already know it's a weakness for them. Schedule their schedule is a little bit tighter. Okay, um, so that covers fixing your labor costs. You all have a great day. I'm all done here. Again, let me give you the address to the website. I'm not going to repeat it this time because I'm getting tired of saying it. So, but here it is. Thank you guys, and you have a great day.